if you think about it, AI is actually the fastest path to communism.
This is a silly proposition, and here is why.
Musical artist Grimes put out a fairly bizarre TikTok video about AI and communism. A video which was then replied to with a much better TikTok video by musical critic and entertainer Anthony Fantano. So first here, I'm going to play the Grimes clip and discuss this.
I have a proposition for the communists. So typically, most of the communists I know are not big fans of AI. But if you think about it, AI is actually the fastest path to communism. So if implemented correctly, AI could actually theoretically solve for abundance. Like, we could totally get to a situation where nobody has to work, everybody is provided for with a comfortable state of being, comfortable living. AI could automate all the farming, weed out systematic corruption, thereby bringing us to as close as possible to genuine equality. So basically, everything that everybody loves about communism, but without the collective farm. Because let's be real, enforced farming is really not a vibe.
All right. Now, I could discuss the weird, shaky camera angle. I could talk about how Grimes once called herself a communist before having a baby with one of the world's top capitalists and billionaires, Elon Musk. But I'm going to put all that aside and just discuss the argument here. And I'll get to a lot more after I play Anthony Fantano's clip. But I just want to mention just briefly here. At the beginning of her comments, she says, quote, if implemented correctly, and then goes on to explain how communism would, or how AI would improve the labor force. If implemented correctly, is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this video. As we have seen so far, this is not how technology has been implemented in the workplace. It has not led to people working less and having easier lives. It's done the opposite. But before I get to any of that and some data on that as well, I first want to get to Anthony Fantano's clip, his reply to this, which is just totally spot on.
I have a proposition for the communists.
I probably shouldn't say anything, but I'm too dumb to keep my mouth shut, so here we go. This is a silly proposition, and here is why. With regard to communism and fixing our broken economic system in general, the issue isn't so much working as much as it is owning. And it doesn't really matter how much you automate away labor, how much you AI away labor, if at the end of the day, the people who have to live under that change and live under that system have no stake in it, they don't own it, and they really have no say in how it impacts their lives. If that necessary change doesn't happen, most likely this new system will just serve the people who own it, the people who are at the top of it. And that's not a revolution, that's not communism, that's just a new version of feudalism. And you may say, Anthony, if my ability to work and make money is totally eliminated, the politicians and billionaires wouldn't just let me starve and die and struggle to live. You sure about that?
Anthony Fantano, showing you that he is not only the internet's busiest music nerd, but also knows a hell of a lot about politics. So he's exactly right here. It's not about the technology, it's about ownership. Who actually controls the means of production? Because if AI is implemented, continues to be implemented in the way that it has been so far, we've seen it has not led to, increased wages or better material conditions, improved material conditions for people's lives. It's only made things much, much worse. And I'll get to some data on that in a second. First, I want to get to Fantano's tweet reply to his video, saying, that being said, I don't consider myself a communist or an expert in it. This just seems like a really lazy bait and switch attempt to address the most baseline concern they're talking about all the time. AI doesn't just automatically lead to class and social equality. Duh. And, in Grimes' defense here, I think she would say, well, I did say, quote, if implemented correctly. So, if implemented correctly, sure, anything could work if implemented correctly. But if you don't fight for how it is implemented correctly, then you're not going to have the solution that you're looking for, which leads me to some of the data here. So this is from the Economic Policy Institute, showing you, this is the first graph. I have two graphs here. Let me start with this one. The gap between productivity and a typical worker's compensation has increased dramatically since 1979. So quoting from the study here, they say from 1979 to 2019, net productivity rose 72.2%, while the hourly pay of typical workers essentially stagnated, increasing only 17.2% over 40 years, and that's after adjusting for inflation. This means that although Americans are working more productively than ever, the fruits of their labors have primarily accrued to those at the top and to corporate profits, especially in recent years. Now, so this shows you clearly an increase in technology, AI, which we've seen over the past 30 years, has not led to increased wages along with productivity. So productivity rises, increased wages do not. Again, because the people working do not control the means of production. They don't have any say in this system. Let me show you the next graph here. So this is as union membership declines, income inequality increases. So again, quoting the study here, not coincidentally, as the unionization rate declined, the share of income going to the top 10% dramatically escalated. By 2019, the top 10% was capturing nearly half of all annual income. In fact, after decades of decline in the share of workers represented by a union, the U.S. economy is marked by extreme inequality, the highest ever in U.S. history, according to new Census Bureau data. So again, these two graphs really show you it all. The importance of unions in wages for the average worker. The increase in productivity showing you does not lead to increased compensation. And when we're talking about unions and the importance of unions, and again, this is not just about people within unions benefiting, even if you're not in a union. The existence of unions leads you to having better wages and better working conditions because your workplace is having to compete with unionized workplaces. And on this point, Elon Musk, again, this is Grimes' boyfriend. They have at least one child together. Elon Musk broke U.S. labor laws on Twitter. An administrative judge says Tesla tried to sabotage efforts to unionize factory workers in California. This is what Grimes is representing here. She now has this worldview. Once a communist, now a extreme capitalist. If you're going to make the argument that AI will lead to better working conditions for the average worker, you can't be making that argument when the example that you look to is Elon Musk and how he treats workers. So clearly, increased AI, increased technology in the workplace has not led to better working conditions, has not led to better material conditions in general for the working class. So I think Anthony Fantano, of course, broke it down perfectly. But man, when you have people like Grimes who have a massive following, misinforming people about the benefits of AI, that potentially has a real negative impact, especially on people who normally maybe aren't all that into, learning about this stuff, but are going to listen to their favorite artist and what she has to say about this issue, and then have their worldview shaped by that, even though her worldview clearly is just completely out of whack.